So tell me about life in Francis Ave.
Francis Ave. Oh well. Um, well, it was family life, you know. I think I was a relatively typical little boy for that era, in that you know, I was into playing outside and playing for my brother and playing rugby and doing cricket and all this sort of thing. But we also had a lot of music in the house as well. So I have three sisters and a brother, as well as my parents, who passed on now. And of course, my father was a composer and my mother was a soprano who sang solos. So there was always music around. And
Was there a great array of musical visitors as well, or?
yes, we had a lot of people would come in to see us. I remember Margaret Nielsen coming. We had people from overseas, like the Prague String Quartet in the 1960s.
Because they were resident at the university?
Yes, that's right. In fact, the cellist was Stenik Kodacek, actually taught me for a wee while.
Right.
On the cello. I wasn't a very good student though at that age.
So did you start with that number of children? Did you all play the piano? I mean, was the one piano that was sort of running hot 24 hours a day, or?
I tended to be the pianist, so I
Yes.
was the piano. My siblings, my brother learned the clarinet for a while, which was my father's instrument.
Yes.
And Judy learned the violin. Lizzie, I think Lizzie and Judy all learnt the violin at some stage. So I had the piano more or less to myself.
Okay, right.
Except for when Dad wanted to use it occasionally.
Yes, I have. How inconsiderate of them.
Yeah, so I mean, I learnt the piano when I was young, but I wouldn't say I was, you know, wedded to it to start with. But once I hit around about age 11, 12, I really started to get into playing and improvising a lot.
So, and as far as composition, were there any early signs that you were going to have a great interest and talent at composition?
Well, I guess, I mean, 11 or 12 is, I suppose that's a relatively early sign of interest, in that I like to muck around on the piano instead of learning the pieces I was supposed to learn. I mean, I learned them, but
Yes.
I preferred making up my own stuff from quite an early age, which would develop into improvisations.
And did your dad have any input into any of this? Was he aware of it?
I think he probably was aware at some stage, because he would have heard me
Yes.
tinkering away. I think my mother would have been more aware, because she was at home a lot more than my father.
Yes.
His dad was
Yeah,
out
very
a lot,
busy.
a
Yes.
lot, very busy person. So,
Yes.
So he, I think.
Did he teach you composition at all at any point?
Only once I got to sixth form, I think it was, year 12. He started thinking I should learn harmony, so he tried to teach me some harmony.
And did that go well?
I wouldn't say it was a roaring success.
It's often the case with parents teaching their children, isn't it?
Because I found traditional harmony quite difficult and a bit frustrating, to be honest.
Yes.
Because I didn't have the ear for it at that stage, and I had to work hard to develop that. Yeah.
So were you using the William Lovelock books? And
Yes, that's right. Yes, I know. Yes, I could still see them.
Yes, that's right.
With their waving fingers.
Yeah, that's right. Yes. And so you finished school and you went to university to study music?
Yeah. Yes.
And it was never going to be anything else other than music?
No, by that stage it wasn't. No, I did a seventh form at Burnside High School.
Yes.
I changed schools from the school I went to, which was St. Bede's, specifically to follow the music, and that was at Burnside, because they had a wonderful chorale, and Dorothy Buchanan was teaching composition, and it was very exciting. So that sort of really sealed my fate, shall we say, with music. So I wanted to study music.
And were your musical parents happy that you had chosen music? Because sometimes musicians don't particularly want to encourage their children into, the same profession, because they know it's a tough profession.
Yeah, they were supportive. They were very
Yes.
supportive. There was never any suggestion that I should
Get a proper job.
get a proper job. No. Yeah.
Yes. And you went to Canterbury University?
Yes, that's right.
Yes.
Yeah, my father was still teaching there at that stage.
Yes. And was that sort of a strange situation to have your father
Yeah,
in
it was a little bit strange looking back. At the time, I tried to block it out, but it was a little bit odd.
And the campus was at Ireland at that point, was it?
Yes, it was.
Yes.
That's right.
Yes.
So my dad taught me for some second year paper, form in music, and as well as conducting. I quite enjoyed the conducting with him. That was good.
Yes. and tell me, at that point in time, did you enjoy your father's compositional style?
Yes, up to a point. Yes, I.
Is that a good question or a bad question?
Oh no, that's a fair question to ask.
Yes.
But I think, as you'll understand, young people have their own ideas.
Yes.
They want to, and know it all. And I was more into East European, Russian music, Bartok as well, and those Stravinsky, as well as some of the avant-gardes, Ligeti and so forth, which wasn't really Dad's cup of tea. He was more conservative composer.
Yes.
Although his best works, I think, are more modern, like the clarinet concertino.
Yes.
It's got some nice modern bits.
I think his clarinet concertino was absolutely superb work, and I enjoyed playing it enormously. Yes.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah,
Yes.
you've done it,
Yes.
more than once, I imagine.
Yes, I have. Yes.
Yeah, it's beautiful. It is a beautiful work, and I still admire the craft, and I do like that work. But if I was honest, I'd say I found some of his music a bit conservative for my tastes. So
Yes.
I want to do more modern things.
And if your father was still alive and composing, do you think he would continue to compose in the style that he, or would have his music evolved as well? Do you think?
I think so. Yes. I think right up to his death, he was still writing music in a similar style, that he'd established, and that was his voice. And he stretched the boundaries, like in the four Pasternak songs, which are more edgy and modern. But that was about as far as he went.
Yes. Yeah. And do you get the impression? Sorry to be talking about your father so much, but he's such an important part of New Zealand music making. Do you think he got frustrated with the amount of work he had to do at the university versus the amount of time he had for composing?
I think in retrospect, yes, there was a degree of frustration that he hadn't maybe done as many big works as he would have liked. So in other words, he didn't, he wrote a lot of music, but not a lot of it's, on a big scale, so there's no symphonies.
And do you think that you've learnt something from that yourself, that, as you are midway through your compositional career, does that make you think, well, this is what I want to have achieved,
well, I think
as a legacy?
Yes. In fact, quite an early age, well, not early age, but in my 20s or 30s, I think I realised that Dad had given so much of his life to the university, as well as other things like the Music Society for Music Education, and that he had a few regrets about not having more composition under his belt, and I wanted to make sure that was my main focus, and I think I've done that. Yeah.
So you finished university. What was next for you?
Well, I got a job as the composer in schools for a year, which was in Christchurch, and that was at Kashmir High School and a couple of other schools around that area. And that was a position that doesn't exist anymore, but
No.
basically I was working in schools, writing music for the children, arranging stuff, and also encouraging them to compose.
That must have been a fantastic opportunity.
Yeah, it was. It was a great opportunity, and I learned a lot from that.
And to get instantaneous feedback
Yeah.
from the kids as well.
And very honest feedback,
Yes, kids don't hold back, do they?
No. But I've got a fair degree of, I like to stay in touch with the child and me, and
Yes.
so I think I did enjoy seeing what they came up with and
Yes.
imaginations and so forth.
Yes. And you would have to be very much riding on a timeline for that, wouldn't you? Because they need it by week 3, and it's
right.
week 2. So did that in itself give you a sort of a discipline of delivering on?
Yes, I think it helped instill that in me.
Yes.
And also instill the sense of having to be practical as a composer, as well as writing what you, as in your vision or whatever. It's also writing for the people in front of you.
Well, if you look back historically, that is the case for so many of the composers, wasn't it? I mean, look at Vivaldi.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
It,
And
it's
in fact, more and more over the years, I've come to realise that the importance of that relationship between composer and performer. It's so critical. And yet when I was younger, I didn't fully realise that. I thought, just making up the stuff at the piano and giving it to people was enough, but it's
yes,
not. It's,
yeah. So after that year was over, what came next?
I was Mozart Fellow here at Otago University.
That was a very young age.
Yeah, I think I was 27. So I'd done a PhD during my university year, so that was another 3 years.
Right. Okay.
That explains the.
Yes. Yes.
So yes. Anyway, I got the position as Mozart Fellow here for a year, which got extended to 2 years, and I ended up staying.
So tell me about those 2 years as a Mozart Fellow here at Otago University.
Yeah.
Was there what did you have to do to be the Mozart Fellow?
Well, you have to apply and put.
Yes. But I mean, what were your duties?
My duties.
Yeah.
It's quite an interesting fellowship because there are no specified duties. There's no saying you've got to write this, that, and the other thing. You have to come up with a plan that you present to them, to write a cycle of songs and this and that. And they it is a requirement that you engage with the music department and the people in that. And so I made relationships with the performers and wrote a piano, a clarinet trio, clarinet, violin, clarinet, cello, and piano for some of the staff here. And so it's things like that.
Yes. And then you joined the staff here.
No, I freelanced for another 10 years at least. So
Right.
Mozart Fellow was 1988. I didn't join the staff here permanently until 2003, so that's 15 years.
Right.
More or less freelancing as a composer and doing other things.
Yes. And so was that challenging? I mean, to go freelance?
Well, it didn't seem like it at the time. I think, when you're young, you sort of don't tend to think of that far ahead, so
Yes.
you don't worry too much
Yes.
about finances.
Yes.
But at the time, because I'd been Mozart Fellow and I'd had a couple of commissions, I guess I had some confidence that I could carry on getting commissions.
So did you sort of search out commissions, or did people come to you? Because in the ideal world, they come to you, they knock on your door rather than.
Yeah.
Did you? Is that the situation, that they knocked on your door?
Yeah, most of the time.
Because it's very hard. It's very exhausting to market your art, isn't it?
It is.
Yes.
Yeah, you do have
Yes.
to. You've got to work on it. You've got to
Yes.
network a bit. Get to know people, but also just make sure people know about you and remind them that you exist.
Yes, that's right. So tell me, you've got a new commission for. What's the process for you? Do you have to think about that for quite a while before you embark on putting the first notes to? Do you still write onto paper, or do you?
Yeah, I still write on paper to start with.
Yes.
Then I transfer to computer halfway through
Yes.
the process. But
Yes.
what usually, if someone comes and asks me for a composition, I'll ask, well, how long you want it, who are the people who's going to play it.
Yes.
Where I like to know where it's being played to, so I get an idea, feel for the venue that might be involved, any occasion. And I do sometimes ask, have you got a theme in mind, or am I allowed to just create my own? So there's a bit of toing and froing to start with.
Yes.
And sometimes people will have quite specific requirements, and other times they just say no.
So do you have a preference for those specific requirements, or do you prefer it when you've got a free range?
Generally, I prefer a free range. But having said that, sometimes the brief can really draw you in, and you do stuff that you might not have otherwise done. And
Yes.
I mean, I think of the big work I wrote for the centenary of the First World War, Gallipoli to the Somme. Now that was quite a prescribed commission. It had to be about the First World War and
Yes.
so forth. But that was a challenge for me to go and research and to find a good way into that subject. And I found that actually really interesting, and the outcome I was really pleased with. So it can work really well, ideally.
So if looking to the future, there's many exciting projects ahead of you that you don't know about. I mean, that in itself is very, very exciting, isn't it? And intriguing. But do you have a sort of dream if someone came along and said, I want to commission you to write what you want to write? Is there something that you would like to do?
Well, I've done a lot of things, but I've written some smaller scale opera. But it would be a dream for me if someone came to me and said, "Look, we want an opera that's for a full orchestra and a professional opera outfit, and it can be a full length opera, not just a chamber." I really like telling stories in music, and that for me would be a really lovely thing to happen.
and tell me finally, what sort of music do you listen to for leisure? Can you listen to music for leisure, or is it too much like a busman's holiday?
Sometimes it is a busman's holiday. I've often will go for days without listening to music actively, and then I'll suddenly feel in the mood.
Yes.
Last night suddenly I had a hankering to listen to some contemporary music, so I listened to some Pekka Salonen, and so it just sometimes comes out of the blue. But actually, other occasions I've found I'm starting to find music a source of therapy as well. Interesting enough, a couple of years ago I had some surgery done, quite severe surgery, and I was in hospital for 3 weeks. And I found listening to Radio New Zealand concert in the middle of the night sort of preserved my sanity. I suddenly realised how therapeutic this music. It almost didn't matter what it was. It was a lovely thing to have. So that's an interesting aspect of what music can do.
It's interesting that 3 weeks ago in Australia, I interviewed someone who had played at the recent coronation, and King Charles came to the rehearsal 2 days before the coronation, and they were rehearsing, because he wasn't going to hear it at the coronation because he was going to be in his carriage. And whilst they were rehearsing, he was in tears. And he got up and he gave a very moving speech about music keeps him sane. So there we go. You're in very good company. Thanks very much, Anthony. That was wonderful.